Let's imagine for a second that you were just hired by Square Enix as a software developer to join the team working on the release of a new project. You've never had a developer job, but because you work hard and believe in 100% honesty and transparency as a guiding compass in everything you do in life, you finessed your way through the whole interview having never coded a day in your life. Now, will this work in real life? No, but this is our dream scenario, and we can dream our way into a nightmare if we want to. Your team is tasked with helping a modest game development studio by the name of Don't Nod with the release of a sequel to one of their previous games, Life is Strange. You know, I really love helping people get high-paying tech jobs by trying to make it as unintimidating as possible and spending time that I would otherwise spend working. To pay my rent costs me money, and while I don't mind paying out of my own savings to do this, it would be absolutely fantastic to offset these costs. So, if you want to support and allow me the time to think of ways to help others feel less intimidated by tech, there's a link in my Patreon below. You can support with as little as just over $1, and every little bit helps subsidize the costs of the ingredients for my elaborate cuisine of homemade sandwiches. But please don't feel bad if you can't, because leaving a simple message in the comments will be super helpful as well. You all jump on a group call with what everyone's calling the project's stakeholders, a word that means nothing but a corporate buzzword to you at this point. And you all go through basic, brief introductions, and the stakeholders start going over a high-level overview of the game. Corporate jargon and acronyms are just flying at you at breakneck speed, and you are feeling beyond overwhelmed. But after a few minutes, you realize, oh, stakeholders are literally just the dev team from the game studio. And they want you to put content relaying the game experience on Square Enix's website. And one of the main things they're starting with is their game trailer. And similarly to how we touched on this in a previous video on the Chained Echoes experience, trailers are often a way to give the audience exactly what they came to see the moment they come to the page. Visual illustrations are often the most powerful and efficient way for developers to keep users engaged in an introduction to the narrative the game developers have crafted for the viewer. And now is the time to actually implement it. But we have no idea how to do it at this point. So to prepare ourselves for the dev job we may or may not ever be interested in looking into, we'll make our watch trailer button that we added in the previous Life is Strange 2 video actually work with JavaScript. If we open VS Code again from before and hit Go Live again to open our browser, we see our background image is the way we left it, along with the Life is Strange 2 logo and our buttons. Quick note, if this all means nothing to you, a quick watch of the part 1 and 2 of this video series will give you everything you need to know. This watch trailer button would be nice if it actually showed us the trailer when we clicked on it. So let's try working on that. We can assume they sent us a link to their trailer on YouTube. So I'll drop that in the description below. When we go to their video on YouTube and click the share button, we'll notice a couple of different options here, most of which we usually use when we want to send our friends a video we've been watching, but one we might not use too often is this first one, labeled embed. Now, we could just put a link to the video and make the game's audience click on it themselves and leave our website. But remember, the point of this is to create an experience for the users, giving them a taste of the emotions the game communicates through its narrative and gameplay mechanics. And again, if we think back to that old adage of show, don't tell in film and writing, using something to drive that experience as a visual catalyst in the form of an actual video directly embedded into the experience we're creating is going to avoid breaking that engagement we have from the potential player. We want them to feel like this is a continuous emotional journey they're having, and sending them away from the page would likely interrupt that sense of immersion. An embed is a piece of code that allows you to include media content from one website, like YouTube, directly into another website, like the one we're making. If we click this embed button and copy the code here, we can paste this directly in our HTML file. Let's say we decide to put it near the end here, just on the inside of our top section div. And once we save, the trailer video shows up on our page. Now, we don't have to know what all this stuff in this iframe tag here does. And to be honest, there are a lot of developers who don't know what all these things do. We can kind of guess that, okay, the width and height are just to control the size of the video and stuff, but all we really need to know is that this iframe lets us include a video from YouTube's website directly into ours. Now, at this point, we look back at the designs the game dev's UI and UX design team shared with us and notice that we probably also want to include the icon that lets us close the trailer section once we're done watching the video too. So we grab the icon that I've also included in the description and save it to our folder the same way we downloaded our images. But we notice this time, it's not a regular image file that ends with something we've seen before, like .jpg or .png. This one ends with .svg. SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. But I mean, the name of it really isn't something we need to remember. SVGs are also used like images, but they're often used in user interface designs. The reason for this is because of what their quality looks like when they're scaled to larger sizes compared to regular image files. Okay, so real quick break. You know how when you're playing a game and looking at a game texture, or really just looking at any image and zoom in really close, you can usually see the individual pixels that make up the image. This is because normally all images are just rows of blocks or pixels, and each pixel just has one solid color. But when zoomed out far enough, our eyes can't see the individual pixels and it just looks like one seamless image. If an image file doesn't have enough pixels in it, the more you zoom in, the easier it will be to see those individual pixels. SVG files, on the other hand, aren't made up of pixels at all. They're made up of lines and shapes, or more specifically, directions that tell the computer how to draw lines or shapes on the screen. So when you scale the image to a larger size or zoom in, the computer just redraws the lines based on the directions in the SVG file. And the end result is what looks like an infinitely smooth image. So then the question is, well, this sounds like the ultimate solution. Why not just use this for everything? And just like many things out there that aren't just used everywhere, there's a good reason for this. The use of color with SVGs is very limited, and it takes a bit more time for the computer to draw them. But for simple things like icons, they're perfect. And since we already have it in our app folder, let's say we decide to add it right above this iframe for the trailer video with an image tag. We write the name of the file in the source property here and see it show up on the screen. Just so we can select it, let's say we decide to add a class and name it closed_trailer_icon. Now, let's think about what we're trying to do here. Looking back at the designs the designers came up with for us, when someone potentially interested in playing the game comes across our website and clicks this watch trailer button, we want to show a new section of our app that has the trailer video and our icon that lets us close or hide the section once we're done watching it. So because we know we need to show and hide some kind of section holding our video and icon, we decide to make a new div and put those two elements inside of it. Let's say we give this new div a class and call it trailer section. Cool, so now we want to change the way it looks. So we jump over to our CSS file and select our new trailer section element. And most of the stuff that we learned before can be used to build these designs. There's just one or two new things that will help us out. And right now, everything in our trailer section is below everything else in our top section. But we actually want this new trailer section to lay on top of everything else here instead of pushing them around to make room for itself. Remember that position property we used to decide how we wanted to place and move things around? Well, the default is set to something called static, which makes everything else in this section make room for it. If we want to move it away from this spot, we can use position relative like before, but for this case, we want to give it its own absolute position that's entirely independent of everything else in the section. If it has an absolute position and it's independent from everything else, nothing else in the section needs to move around to make room for it, right? So we try it out by setting position to absolute and immediately see our new trailer section separate itself from everything else in this top area. Our buttons are no longer making room for the icon, and they've snapped back to where they were originally. And at this point, we're making some good progress now. So we just start using the same kinds of things we learned before. Our closed trailer icon is looking crazy huge. So we select that, and after playing around with the width and height for a bit, we settle on 70 pixels. We also notice our icon and videos are lined up horizontally in a row when the designs want them vertically. So like before, we use the display property and set it to flex and change the flex direction to column. And when the trailer section is open, we want the background around the video to be black. So we set the background color to black. But we notice the trailer section is only taking up a small amount of the screen when we'd like it to take up the entire thing. So just like before with the background image, we set the width and height using viewport units, setting each to 100 respectively. And now it's taking up the whole screen. Now we just have to center it. So again, like before, we use the justify content and align items properties and set them both to center, centering them both vertically and horizontally. And at this point, we're almost there building out the designs. But the main problem now is the size of the trailer video. So to select it in our HTML file, we add a class to the iframe tag for the video and just call it trailer. Then in CSS, we select it and give it a width of 100 viewport widths. Now the size is looking admittedly a bit funky because the aspect ratio isn't staying the same. What we really want is the height to also grow as the width of the user's window grows. Right now it looks odd because the height is always staying the same. But if we set the height to 100 viewport widths to say, hey, keep the height the same size as whatever the width of the window is, now they'll grow together. 100% of the window's width is a bit much though, so after playing around with some smaller sizes, we eventually land on 56.4 as matching the normal video's aspect ratio. The only thing left visually is to move this icon over to the right side of the screen, or move it from the center of this flex column over to the end of this flex column. And since our icon is inside a section where we used flex, we can do that with a property called align self and set it to flex end. And just because we don't like how it's right up against the edge, we add 8 pixels of space around it with the margin property. Now the very last thing to do is to only show this section when the user clicks that watch trailer button and hide it when they click the close trailer icon. And it's really easy to hide something in CSS by changing this display property from flex to none. But it admittedly would be cool to somehow toggle this on and off. And a really common way to do that is by starting it off as display none and then adding a brand new class. Since it's really the same trailer section, but just to help us show it instead of hide it, we can just call it trailer section -- show. And all this class will do will just switch display from none, which kept it hidden, back to flex, so it shows up again. And here is where JavaScript comes in. Right now we just have this trailer section class name on our element, so it's still hidden. But we can check to see when the user clicks on that watch trailer button, and then add this new class we just made that shows the video. So just like we added our CSS file to our apps folder, we make a new file and just call it homepage.js for JavaScript. And just like we did with the CSS file, we also have to tell our app where our new JavaScript file is. So this time, at the end of our body tag, we just start writing the word script, press enter, and write homepage.js in the source property. And when we open our JavaScript file, the first thing we'll want to do is tell JavaScript to select our new trailer section so that we can show it. There's not a whole lot to write, and at first this probably won't make a ton of sense, but we'll go over each part once we write it out. By the way, I forget things like this all the time and just search how to select things with JavaScript on Google whenever I need to remember. To select things on the HTML document, JavaScript gives us this built-in tool we can use by just typing the word document. And if we type a dot we see all the built-in tools or functions we can use with the document. We want to query and select our trailer section, so we'll type query selector and then write these parentheses at the end. Inside here, we put some quotation marks. This is where we write the name of whatever we want to select. We want to select a class, so as usual, we'll start with a dot and then the name of our class, which is trailer section. And that's it. We've selected it. Now, it might be helpful for us to think about how JavaScript works real quick. Kind of like someone working on an assembly line with a conveyor belt, JavaScript starts at one end, the top, and moves its way down the line to the other end, the bottom. Here, we've selected our trailer section, but if we want to use it later, it might be helpful for us to keep it somewhere. Otherwise, JavaScript is just going to continue moving on down the conveyor belt, and we'll never actually get to use it. We can do the same thing in JavaScript and tell it to store this trailer section we selected so we can add a class to it later. We do that by putting it in something called a variable. And variables are just like boxes that we can put pretty much anything inside of. Icons, buttons, text, images, numbers, whatever. And they're super easy to make. When we want to make them, we just write the word let, like the phrase, let there be light, and then just whatever we want to call our variable. Let's say we decide to call it trailer section, since, it's where we're going to keep our trailer section element from our page. Then we just type an equal sign and set it to the trailer section on our HTML document. Great, so we've selected our trailer section and saved it in a variable so we can show it later when they click the watch trailer button. And because we want to check or listen for when the user clicks on the watch trailer button, we select that one the same way. So we make a variable and decide to call it watch trailer button and set it equal to our watch trailer button on our HTML document. And JavaScript has another cool built-in feature or function that we can use to check or listen for when the user clicks on the button. We just type a dot after we write the name of our watch trailer button variable and type the words addEventListener. And just like before, we write some parentheses at the end. Inside these parentheses, we write two things. We want to listen for when the user clicks on the button, so we can write the word click between these quotation marks like this. And then we write the second thing, what we want JavaScript to do once the user clicks. So we write a comma, press space to give ourselves some room, and then write the name of some instructions we'll give JavaScript on what to do. We want to show the trailer, so we can just name this set of instructions show trailer. Now, this set of instructions that we're talking about is what people call a function. Funny thing, we've actually been using some built-in set of instructions or functions already, like when we selected something on the document or listened for when the user clicked. But now we're going to make our own set of instructions that will show the trailer. So to make a function, we just type the word function and then whatever we want this function to be called. We told JavaScript this function would be called show trailer, so we just go ahead and name it that. Then we write some parentheses just like the other built-in functions we used, and now we're going to write the actual instructions for what this function should do. To do that, we just write these squiggly brackets and press enter. Inside here is where we're going to write our instructions, and don't worry, they're going to be really short. Remember that new class we made to show the trailer section? All we want to do is add that. And it's really similar to everything else we've been doing. We just write the name of our trailer section variable, write a dot to use another one of those built-in functions for HTML elements, and then write class list.add. Then we'll add parentheses on the end, and inside some quotation marks, write the name of our class. And since this function already is just for classes, we actually don't have to write the dot before the name here this time. We called our class trailer section --show. So at this point, we jump back to our app to try it out. And when we click the watch trailer button, our new trailer section shows up. Now we just have to do the exact same thing, but remove the class to hide it when they click the close trailer icon. So we make a variable, call it close trailer icon, and set it to our close trailer icon element in our HTML document. Then on the close trailer icon, we add an event listener to listen for when the user clicks on the icon, and then hide the trailer with a new function we'll make called hide trailer. So we make the function, and inside of it, where we say what the function actually is supposed to do, we use the built-in function on our trailer section element called classList.remove to remove that new class we made that shows the trailer section. And when we click it, it removes that class, making the CSS property go back to display none again, hiding the trailer section like we wanted. Now, I think it's really important to know that knowing what we've learned so far in just these 3 videos, there are actually developer jobs out there that will hire people just knowing the basics of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now, they are very few, and they're probably going to ask a few more basic questions about JavaScript or maybe even CSS, but they are out there. But because they are so few, we'll have a much easier time finding a front-end developer job if we learn a JavaScript library. These libraries are kind of like plugins or extensions for JavaScript. So it's still the same JavaScript that we're learning. And a really popular one of these JavaScript libraries is called React. And this Life is Strange 2 video game website for Square Enix was actually made using that very library. In the future, we'll take a look at the basics of it, but in the meantime, it's a good idea to get familiar with the basics of JavaScript first. That way, we'll know the difference between what is regular JavaScript and what is React. If you're interested in learning about what employers are looking for in a developer's portfolio, feel free to look at another one of my videos down in the description on a new Japanese-style RPG called Chained Echoes. And as the old adage that definitely is a real saying goes, may the odds be ever in your favor and the snacks be ever in your bag.